Hello everyone, my name's Yvonne Nuno and I'm with Team Grit. Today we'll be analyzing our case on Facebook and the ethical considerations of pre-employment screening. Let's start by taking a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll be discussing things such as the ethical issues regarding social media and employees, and whether Facebook information is private or public to employers. I would now like to begin with our introduction of our Facebook case. According to these statistics, our slide illustrates that between these four major social media outlets, Facebook leads the way with the most active users at 1.86 billion each month. This leads me to talk about how the leading outlet, Facebook, is affecting our daily lives. In general, social media has changed how the world reads, researches, and shares information. It has mixed our social world with the practicality of a fast and easy online communication. Social media outlets such as Facebook have become a crucial and beneficial for people to contact and interact with each other. It is an easy way for friends to share anything, from their daily lives to major life experiences. Because of the large amount of users on Facebook, it is pretty simple to find information about most people in the work world. Some employers might find this as recruiting heaven, since most personal information on Facebook is open for anyone. And if it is not, it is relatively easy to access it. This can let employers see the recruiters in a different scene or a different light. This also may affect their recruiting decisions. In this case study, we will be analyzing the ethical issues regarding social media and the use of personal information that is being utilized by employers in the recruiting process. Here we have some regulations that the U.S. has to protect information about recruiters. Example of some protected information includes age, disabilities, genetic or family information, national origin, pregnancy, race or color, religion, sexual orientation, or political views. I will now be passing it on to my teammate Mariana to discuss some of the ethical considerations about the case.
Thank you, Yvonne. Now I'm gonna talk about some of the ethical considerations of using a tool like Facebook for pre-screening for employment. If we look at Facebook as a tool for information in general, and we put ourselves in the shoes of the recruiter, we're gonna find that there are some pros and some cons. So if we talk about the pros, we're gonna see, of course, a sheer amount of individuals with a Facebook account. Like Yvonne said before, 1.8, almost 1.9 billion of people are posting on Facebook on a monthly basis. This is also an online forum, which makes it very public and very open, especially if the users haven't configured their privacy settings. All the information is available uh, via Facebook if you have no privacy settings to anyone looking for your name. And even if you do have privacy settings, for example, let's say to share only the information with your friends, still companies or recruiters have methods to access your extended personal information, like using snowball sampling, which is, for instance, using a questionnaire that you can interact with and then post back the results. That will give them access to your profile information, but not only to that, also to your likes and the shares and the posts that you do on your wall. Another pro is that they have a real world view of the individual uh, posting or the individual sharing of information, since we share things, from uh, the things we eat to the places we go, the people we hang out with, the associations we have with universities, etc. But the cons are also very heavy and or heavy weighted, and we have things like not all the information that is shared on Facebook is relevant to your job. And recruiters also expose themselves to discrimination lawsuits, especially if they start making judgments based on protected information like religion or political views, age, race. They can also find fake profiles, which, even though they are easy to filter out, there are plenty of them out there. And for real profiles, they can even find false information. In the case, we have an example of a college student that posted to belong to a group called Future Trophy Wives of America. Of course, this is meant to be a joke, but for a recruiter, this could be an important indication that this profile will not fit with the organization. And another problem that they find is that the boundaries of data are very blurry. So what that means is that when companies have access to your information, they also have access to the network of people that you belong to. So since the sharings are back and forth, it's very hard to see exactly what is your personal sharing of information versus your friends sharing information about you. Before we go into the question, there are two concepts that are important to define. The first one is justice, which is the theory by which fairness is administered. And that leads us to what is fairness? And fairness is the concept by which we assume we are looking at things without a bias or with impartiality, without a prejudice or favoritisms, which in the case of Facebook, honestly, is really hard to do. The first question in our case is, what are the main ethical issues regarding social media for users and employers? And first of all, we see the problem of fairness and the ethics of justice. And this is mainly because the information shared on Facebook lacks context. It lacks the reasons why or when the information was shared. Also, we find a lot of false information, which again, that type of data does not reflect the real personality of the person. And also, the persons sharing or individuals sharing on Facebook are trying to portray a persona. And a persona, um, it's really what you want other people to see from you, but it's not necessarily a full reflection of your character and the richness of your real person. If we look at things from the utilitarian approach, we see that what we're trying to do is maximize the good while minimizing the harm to stakeholders. And by stakeholders, we know that these are all the customers, other employees, shareholders, community, and the environment, among other things. So, what recruiters are trying to do here is to say, okay, if what the Facebook profile or what the Facebook information is telling me is that there is a potential of conflict between this person and our stakeholders, then this may not be a good fit for employment. But again, because we don't have all the context, all the information, and an accurate portrayal of the persona, it's not fair to really make that assumption. And there are some other problems, like the person really doesn't have the full knowledge and it's not consenting to share all the private information, regardless of the settings, to companies when they are applying for a job. And the use of the information is left to the social scientist or the recruiter's not judgment. So this is also not not impartial. This is totally biased, which again makes it very unfair. Later on, we're going to talk about privacy, but at least in America, the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution implies that everyone has the right to privacy. In other words, to be left alone. And even though we share things on Facebook, there is a cultural understanding that some of this information is made, it's It's private and it's only intended to be shared with our friends. So now I'm going to pass the word to Altina or Tina Akilbekova, and she will expand on the ethical considerations of using social media for employment.
Thank you, Mariana. Moving on to this question, we will think of ethical behavior, which involves demonstrating respect for moral principles such as honesty, fairness, equality, dignity, diversity, and individual rights from Business Dictionary, which then brings us to the question, does HR use these principles in their consideration? We think that it's highly unethical to use Facebook or any other social media in employment consideration. The information that was shared on Facebook is mainly addressed to the people that are related to the person sharing information, which is his friends, whereas hiring agency have zero experience about the person's character. Most of the time they can misinterpret a good qualifying candidate in their hiring decision when they look through their social Facebook profile. However, when an individual is sharing personal information on such network, even if it's privately shared among his friends, his information can leak and become widespread through his closed network. This is at the individual's own risk and responsibility. Most of the time, people who share their information publicly try to show only the part of their personality, and sometimes they don't even act in person the way they show themselves on social network. And today, I think most of the people are using social network to show their personality or their character. The information that is contained on Facebook is incomplete and only shows part of the person or observation of other people about that person. It is also unfair to judge the character of a person today for something they posted years ago. For example, if someone posts some political jokes years ago and nowadays they don't mean that and they haven't deleted the post, when hiring agency is looking through their Facebook profile, they could see that information and they could disqualify that person from hiring process. So human resources should not use a Facebook and any other social networking site in consideration of potential hiring processes. It is illegal under several regulations such as Federal Trade Commission or Department of Home Health and Human Services Office of Civil Rights to access and store certain personal information without the individual's consent. There are other platforms such as LinkedIn, which is used for professional networking, where people show their profiles to represent their individual character and experiences. Recruiters use this professional network to base their decision on potential candidates. This is a good resource for hiring agencies to use. It's a tool that is used for hiring process, and human resources can look through candidates and their individual profile, their experiences, and they should base their decision by looking through such professional networking sites. And now I'm gonna pass it to David, and he's gonna talk about the Facebook and is it information that is shared on Facebook is private and confidential.
Thank you all today. Moving on from the previous question, we will now discuss whether communication on Facebook is private or public and whether or not everything written on Facebook is potentially public information. We feel as though communication via Facebook is private and confidential and should be treated as such. Though sometimes friends can share stories, articles, and even comments with other friends, this delicate information should only be used for their eyes to see. This is why there are features such as profile privacies that force people to have to friend request someone before you can read their material. Also, there are often times where people use Facebook to express a different side of themselves that they don't often get to show in the workplace or during their everyday lives. Lastly, we believe that judgment solely based on social media is unfair to everyone, and employers should spend their time getting to personally know the people that they are attempting to hire.
Thank you, Tyler, for the introduction. Next, we'll look at question 4. Would it be ethical if Facebook profited from selling your or others' personal information to employers? Why or why not? Without a doubt, the initial quick reaction to this question is, of course, no. However, I do not believe that this question is ethically as black and white as it first appears. I think that there are several issues that we must explore before we can make a solid conclusion. First, we must look at defining what type of personal information would be sold, along with defining the intent of the sale. Then we must look at the terms of the agreement that are accepted when you choose to create a Facebook account. Finally, we would need to look at the legal ramifications of this. Depending on how one chooses to set their profile and privacy setting, thus limits the actual amount of information that can be found publicly through an internet search. So I think at this point in time, Facebook may not have a lot to gain financially from selling information that could potentially be found publicly. However, I think if we define personal information as unavailable to a public search, this is where we start to enter into an ethically gray area. Currently, Facebook only gives general information about you to a third-party companies that do marketing for Facebook, i.e. gender, age, location, how receptive these individuals are to a given item, such as an ad. However, I think that it would be ethically wrong for Facebook to start selling personal information to a third-party organization that could in turn sell this information to a company interested in finding out more about the person when they're trying to hire them. When a person signs up for a Facebook account, their default settings are such that it makes your account public to anyone. You can opt to make your account private so that no one can see you. Currently, Facebook does not allow use of the generic information to be used by these third parties. Facebook provides them limited information such as what you look at, like, and post. However, this information is strictly used by marketing third-party companies to do research for ads. As it stands now, personal information, as question states, would violate several FTC and HSS Office of Civil Rights policies. I believe that this law illustrates the potential for transitioning from the banking world to the social world. The Graham and Leach Bailey Act requires financial institutions and companies that offer consumers financial products or services like loans, financial or investment advice, or insurance to explain their information and sharing practices to their customers to safeguard sensitive data. This information was given by the Federal Trade Commission. Given this ruling on the above-mentioned case, I believe that this has provided the groundwork for more laws to come. I do not think Facebook would try to profit from selling your information, despite if they would truly want to or not, just given the legal ramifications they might face if they were to do so. Given all of these points, I think it would be both morally and ethically wrong for Facebook to sell your private information to companies in order to make a profit. I believe in the very near future we will be seeing many more cases pertaining to social medias and how companies use this information that can be found publicly and potentially privately.
Now Yvonne is going to finish with the conclusions as a team for this case. Thank you.
After analyzing the different points of view of this controversial subject, we believe that it's highly unethical for employers to use information found on social media platforms such as Facebook. Certain personal information that is already being protected by different laws shouldn't be accessible or made legal to use just because one decides to share it on a social platform. Personal information can easily be seen out of context or misinterpreted by the employer, which makes this recruiting process very unfair. The employer should focus on how the recruited fits on the specific company by his skills and professional presentation. We believe this case topic is currently affecting a lot of recruiters, and specific laws to protect their privacy rights can cut away from false assumptions made with this type of information. This concludes our analysis for our Facebook case. Thank you for your attention.